Hello everyone, and welcome back to this portion of the class assignments. So this video is going to cover the case law brief assignment. It's the midterm project for this class. And I want to start off by showing you an example of what I am expecting as your class professor from the midterm assignment. So I'm going to show you an example here. And so on your screen, you will see a Word document, and this is the final product once you complete the midterm assignment. It's a case law brief. In this particular example that I'm showing you, it's the Terry versus Ohio case. It's a landmark case decision that covers when police officers may frisk and search suspects for weapons. And so this is the first page here on your screen. You have to have a face page for this assignment. So the first heading will say case law brief. It will have a description of what the case is, like in this case, Terry versus Ohio, and where you can locate the case, and in the year the case was decided by the Supreme Court. In the middle of your paper, it will have by, and then it'll have your name here where it says Jane Doe. You're going to put your first and last name. I will post a sample of this assignment link on the actual module for the case law brief midterm assignment, so you could get a look for yourself as to what exactly I'm looking for in this assignment. So let's continue. So this is the face page. We've just talked about the title. We've talked about the middle of the paper. It'll have your name. And then if we scroll down to the bottom, you're going to have the class title, AJ203, Concepts of Criminal Law class. You're going to change the date to the current date. It's going to be May 10th, 2017, my name, the program, where we're located, and then the college. The second page, and it's important that you follow these headings, we're going to follow the IRAC method. IRAC stands for issue before the court, rule of law, application of facts or analysis, and then conclusion by the court. At the very bottom, you also see this dissent, and we'll talk about this in a minute. But let's go to the very top of the case, of the case brief. So the first heading that says issue before the court, that's a question. I always tell my students when I teach this class in the classroom, is the sky blue? And that's the question, right? So issue before the court here is whether a search for weapons without probable cause for arrest is an unreasonable search under the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution. And so in rule of law, then you answer the question that was posed in issue before the court. So I mentioned earlier, issue before the court, is the sky blue? Under rule of law, it'll say, yes, the sky is blue. So it's a very short answer to the first question posed under issue before the court. Now, look at this rule of law, this sample brief that I'm showing you. To answer the first question, it'll say, an officer may perform a search for weapons without a warrant, even without probable cause, when the officer reasonably believes that the person may be armed and dangerous. So we've asked the question, we've answered the question. Now, in this big long paragraph, not very long, but longer than the first two questions and answers paragraphs, under application of facts, you have the details of the case. This is where I want you to read about your case law brief and in your own words, put down what is this case about. So let's read it together. Petitioner, John Terry, was stopped and searched by an officer after the officer observed the petitioner seemingly casing a store for a potential robbery. The officer noticed the petitioner talking with another individual on a street corner while repeatedly walking up and down the street. The men would periodically peer into the store window and then talk some more. The men also spoke to a third man who they eventually followed up to the street. The officer believed that the petitioner and the other men were casing a store for a potential robbery. The officer decided to approach the men for questioning, and given the nature of the behavior, the officer decided to perform a quick search of the men before questioning. A quick frisking of the petitioner, which was Terry, produced a concealed weapon and the petitioner was charged with carrying a concealed weapon. So this is the details of the case. This is like a short paragraph. I don't want you to write a big old long story about what happened. If I was to tell you that you had, less than a minute to describe the events, you would go into what happened here with Terry. A couple of detectives were watching him. It looked like he was casing the store. They were concerned that he may have weapons, so they went ahead and contacted and patted him down. So underneath here you have conclusion by the court. This is the area that the court looked at in order to come to this conclusion under rule of law, the second heading on your case brief. So let's read this together. The Supreme Court of the United States held that it is reasonable search when an officer performs a quick seizure and a limited search for weapons on a person that the officer reasonably believes could be armed. A typical beat officer would be unduly burdened by being prohibited from searching individuals that the officer suspects to be armed. So, and at the very bottom of this sample case brief, you have under dissent, you're looking on your screen, these are the judges that disagreed with the decision or had some concerns about the outcome of this decision. So in this case, this dissent, Justice Williams Douglas dissented, reasoning that the majority's holding would grant powers to officers to authorize a search and seizure that even a magistrate would not possess. So let's just kind of scroll down and I'll go back to where you can find your own case brief. The third page of your case brief should be references. And so here, where did you find information to support your paper here? I have a sample case brief retrieved from casebriefs.com. I also have FindLaw. If you go on the internet, findlaw.com is a great place to find law information. And then one more down here under Justia, U.S. Supreme Court, and then it shows the web address. So this is what a sample case brief looks like. I expect you to have a very short paper for this online class. Follow this format. Don't go outside this format. If you look, you notice that the font type is either Times New Roman or Arial. Don't make it any larger than 12. That's the set standard for APA writing style for college students. You see what the web page looks like, or the face page. I want your face page to look exactly like this face page. The only difference will be your name is going to be different. The very case brief case that you're going to be briefing is going to be different. And obviously the dates that you're going to be submitting, this is going to be different. But everything else, the headings, issue before the court, rule of law, application of facts, and the conclusion by the courts will all be the same on yours. And then again, I want to see references. Where did you find this information from? Where did you obtain it? So now, let's go back to the class. I want to show you where you can actually find this assignment. So if you click on modules, this is like we're looking at your online class here. You click on modules. You're going to scroll down to where it says midterm case brief assignment, and then all of the instructions for this assignment will be posted in here under midterm case law brief assignment. You're going to click on this list here, and it's going to show you a list of landmark case decisions in the United States. It's important that you understand what these are. Anytime someone appeals something to the United States Supreme Court, if the Supreme Court decides to read it, they do go through the case, and then there's arguments back and forth from both sides. And when one side rests, the other side rests, and then the United States Supreme Court makes a decision, and whatever they decide becomes the law of the land. So let's look over a list of landmark case decisions that you can pick that may be a good fit for you. Put my glasses here on. On your screen, there's a list of landmark court decisions in the United States, and this is found in Wikipedia. Although I don't endorse Wikipedia, I have found that this is a great source for you to find the case brief that you want to locate. So let's just scroll down to the types of case briefs that you can find when you decide to select one for your midterm case brief assignment. Under individual rights, there's discrimination based on race and ethnicity. You look and there's a ton of those cases in there. There's more cases under discrimination based on sex. You can go down discrimination based on sexual orientation. And then there's going to be a link, just so you know, you don't have to write all this stuff down. You're going to be able to click on a link that's going to take you to this page, and then you're going to be able to select whatever case you decide to write your midterm assignment on. Birth control and abortion, a hot topic right here, Roe versus Wade, on the people who have the pro-choice side of the deal. If you scroll down, end of life, there's some interesting cases that you should read. And the most recent one, 2006, Gonzales versus Oregon, where now people have a right to die when they find out they have something terminal cancer, etc. They have a right to go ahead and get a prescription for a certain narcotic that they can decide to die without having to go through all the pain that terminal cancer sometimes brings. Power of Congress to enforce civil rights, other areas. I mean, again, take your time scrolling down through this. At the very bottom here, criminal law, there are a ton of cases. On criminal law, this is the case that I just showed you a sample on, the Terry versus Ohio. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4 case down under criminal law. And you notice that, again, it has the year that it was decided. If you decide to do, for example, Katz versus United States, also a great case, you're going to have to include the location where it's found. I'm making it as easy as possible for you to find the location. It's written right here. And so I urge you to take your time reviewing some of these cases. After each case, it has a summary of what it's about. For example, Katz, the Fourth Amendment's ban on unreasonable searches and seizures applies to all places where an individual has a reasonable expectation of privacy. And so then, you know, here's rights to an attorney. Again, we could spend a huge amount of time reviewing this, but just understand that all of these can be found through a link on your case brief assignment. I'm going to put the link there. I'm also going to show a sample case brief assignment to Dropbox. When you click that link, it'll take you to Dropbox. You don't have to have an account. You can simply click on continue without starting a Dropbox account, but it will give you an idea of what the assignment is supposed to be. I do encourage you to print out a copy of what the sample case brief assignment is, so that when you look at your paper and you look at the sample brief, did you follow my directions? You're going to be losing some points if you don't follow the directions for the case brief assignment. I'm going to be deducting points on formats. I'm going to be deducting points for spelling, not following directions. Obviously, as I mentioned before on my other videos about making sure that all the content is your own content is important. So anyway, once you land on this page, you'll be able to look at some important dates. When are the assignments due? Because this is maybe a compressed course that you're currently taking, you have a very short amount of time to get this thing prepared, typed, saved, and submitted. All papers for this assignment will be submitted via Turnitin or VeriCites. It's a plagiarism website that checks your work to make sure that you haven't copied the material before submitting it to me. I strongly urge you to make your paper all original. In other words, do your research, find out what the case is about, and then type it up in your own words. I'm not looking for fancy words. I don't really, this is not law school, so I don't want you to come up with these very elaborate words. I want you to type your paper as if you're sitting across the table from me and you're saying, Dr. Silva, this case is about, this person who did this and that person who did that, and then the courts decided on this, this, and that, and so forth. So again, don't make it confusing. Read the sample case brief assignment, decide that this is what you want to do, and then go from there. If you have any questions, always reach out via email. We also have the under discussion